Good evening, everyone. I welcome members of the gallery and the councillors. The time is 6:05 and I open this meeting for tonight, and I need to advise that we have photographers in the working with us this evening. Please note that they are here for Legat and Deepak, and they will be taking photographs during this session. I also need to advise that it is council policy to record the proceedings of meetings of council on digital media to assist in the preparation of minutes and to ensure that a true and accurate account of debate and discussion of meetings is available. This audio recording is authorised by the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015. I would also like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Tomagina people, and to pay our respect to those that have passed before us, their history and their culture. Moving on to our record of attendance, we have some apologies this evening. Councillor Courtney and Councillor Raw, and leave of absence previously approved, Deputy Mayor Celise Edwards. Point 2 is confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. There is a recommendation before you, councillors. Could I have a mover and a seconder?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts.
Second.
Councillor Hyland. Are there any amendments to these minutes, please? None identified. I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest tonight from our councillors or staff? No one's identified any. Councillors' announcements and report. Announcements by the Mayor. I have asked Councillor Hyland to provide some details about ex-councillor Joe Fagan.
Thanks, Madam Chair. On behalf of the Waratah Wynyard Council, I wish to acknowledge the passing of former councillor Mr Joe Fagan. Young Joe Fagan was a family man, a well-respected businessman and a larrikin who gave so much to so many. The Fagan family business has been based in Waratah for many decades, with a strong emphasis on hiring local people. The Fagan name was very prominent in the start-up of the Savage River Mine in the early 1960s. Joe was also a great supporter of any community activities that were organised for Waratah, and in particular the annual woodchops. Mr Fagan was a councillor from 1993 to 1999.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. My communications are listed there. There is a recommendation that Council note my communications. Could I have a mover and could I have a seconder, please?
So moved.
Councillor Bramich. Councillor Johnson, second. Are there any queries about the activities and events that I've attended this past month? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. Reports by delegates, none have been received. Notification of council workshops, there is a recommendation there. Could I have a mover for that particular recommendation?
So moved.
Councillor Roberts.
Seconded.
Councillor Hyland. Are there any queries or comments that any councillors wish to make at this point? If there are no comments or whatever with this particular recommendation, I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. Public questions and statements. Responses to public questions taken on notice. We have the International Sports Representative Grants with an officer's response. Mr Hutchison, Cody Hutchison, various questions with responses recorded throughout the document. And we move on to public questions received in writing. We have not received any, but public questions without notice and statements without notice. And before I ask any of the gallery to come forward with their statements and questions, I'll read out a statement from the Chair. The Council encourages community participation in its meetings through the opportunity for public questions and statements. Consistent with Council's core values, councillors and staff strive to ensure all people are treated with respect and integrity. We expect our residents and ratepayers to apply similar standards in their dealings with Council. As Mayor, it is my responsibility to maintain the orderly conduct of Council meetings and to determine whether a question or statement is out of order due to the use of offensive, objectionable or defamatory expressions. I remind everyone that at the Council meeting, in particular, a maximum of 3 questions may be asked per person. Any parts to questions are considered questions, or questions to be asked before a response is provided. There is a time limit of 3 minutes per person to ask those questions. Once a question is answered, there is to be no debate on that question. Public statements are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per person, and there is to be no questions or discussion related to a statement. I ask members of the public to show proper consideration and courtesy in their comments. Public questions and statements. We have before us Mr. Ewington. You have statement and question. Would you like to come forward, please?
All good? Can you hear me? Good, thank you. A statement. Footpaths and good street lighting is so important for the members of the community to have safe access and inclusion within the community. The lighting and the footpaths are not good in the community. Basically, there was one not many years ago on Jackson Street where an elderly lady walking across along the footpath tripped and broke her wrist. Reported to the council, and because it wasn't 12 metres high, they wouldn't do anything about it. 2 weeks later, another elderly walked along there, tripped and broke her arm. Then the council acted. There's an episode in Jackson Street, Goldie Street near the post office, where elderly people coming out of the post office couldn't comprehend the footpath and then the edge to the drive to the main street. There's a culvert, the gutter, and what they were doing, they were walking, expecting the path to go the same level to the main street, but they weren't. There's a drop. Unfortunately, they were falling on the road. This took time for action, but it did happen eventually where they put tactile type strips on there, highlighting there is a step there. I would like to tackle the problem at Bowling Green at Wynyard Bowling Club. I have brought this up for a enormous amount of years, but don't seem to get the response from the council. Recently, we've had a Lions member who's been dedicated to the line, which he's on the old age group of persons. He actually came out and fell and broke several ribs and spent time in hospital because there's just not good lighting there for members of the community to have safe access from the car onto the footpath going to the bowling club. They provide many nights where they have venues for different events and run at meals there. It's by members of the community to play bowls. What I'm asking is, this day and age we have got technology with good solar LED lighting systems whereby they can either put on poles down the street or on the fence just to highlight the curb, the step there, and prevent this issue, because a parking bay area of that size, which goes the full length of the bowling green, is not covered in good lighting during the winter, because you must admit winter time is very dark at best of times, and when it's raining drizzly, people have a tendency to trip and falls, which has been reported. All I would like to see this council takes action on this matter and try and develop this area and have it lit up for safety of the community. There's a situation out here in this little street just been done by the concrete. Also, I'd like to bring up once again the IGA footpath section being missing now for 7-8 months. That's poor planning on the part of the engineering, because when they done the car park for the West supermarket, they should have left that and down the concrete until the development works will be done on that footpath, not leave it up and exposed, because that is a main street for people of all disabilities and other issues to partake in that thing. So I feel that's a poor thing, poor planning on the council's behalf. How many minutes have got left? None? 1 minute, okay. I'd like to report a issue with this Bruce's Cafeteria. Back in October 22, they moved the disability parking spot from the close vicinity of the complex to the furthest point away. I highlighted to the management about the fact is they put a disabled parking spot there, but there wasn't safe entry from that point onto the footpath to go to the complex. You are forcing people with disabilities to go out on the main street, which in turns, and then to contend with traffic flow from that onto Dart Street to go into the safe walkway into the complex. So imagine a blind person or someone with a walking frame, how difficult it is. Where originally was put the location disability parking spot was the other end of the complex, whereby you were able to get out of the car and you were safely able to go straight into the complex. That's not good planning for people with disabilities and also deaf and other members. So what I'm trying to say to you, we need to consider all people, blind, deaf, able, young and old. And footpaths is very important for this community to allow them to have access and inclusion to the community of Wynyard. Question 1. The reference construction of the new surf club located in Boat Harbour, will there be tactile pavers installed within the complex to allow the blind and poor eyesight members of the community will have safe access and inclusion within the complex? Question 2. Reference to the new walking track being constructed between Wynyard and Burnie community, the Mayor indicated on the FM radio Saturday week ago that once construction, the bicycles is encouraged to ring their bell to inform the walkers, indicating they will be passing them shortly. How will deaf members of the community hear the bell ring while they walk in the footpath? Question 3. E-scooters, mobile scooters and electrical bicycles are becoming a huge usage on footpaths and within the community. How are we going to restrict the speed limit for safe access and inclusion on coastal pathways and pathways within the community, including shopping centres, to allow for all members, including disability and members with limited walking abilities, move along the walkway with safety in mind? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ewington. Mr. Summers, Director of Infrastructure and Development Services, will respond. Thank you.
Thanks, through you, Mayor. For the first question in regards to the Boat Harbour Beach Master Plan, the plan facility, will it have tactile ground surface indicators? I believe that'll be a yes. Detailed design is occurring as we speak, and I'm certain that will be included. For question 2 and 3, in relation to the coastal pathway development, controlling speeds of e-scooters, ensuring safe and inclusive access for all. We do have the benefit of other councils developing sections of pathways along the coast to refer to for what's worked and what hasn't there. There has been some work on regulations around e-scooters, gophers and the like in the past to fall back upon as well. So there are many resources for this council to refer to ensure we cater for that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Ms. Robertson, would you like to come forward and make your statement and pose your 3 questions, please?
Thank you, Mayor. My councillors. I'd like to thank Councillor Courtney for keeping her election promises for transparency and accountability. That on the 15th of May, I personally found Councillor Courtney's statements and readings were not offensive, but I did find Councillor Hyland's statement of calling Councillor Courtney words of being radical stuff, disrespectful. Questions. Please would management explain why only 8 people showed up to the important meeting that matters most to you at Wynyard Yacht Club on Monday the 10th July 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Question 2. Why the notice board was removed from the park next to the post office. Question 3. What has happened to the digital board talked about by council in the year 2021-2022?
Thank you, Ms Robertson. I'll get our General Manager to respond.
Thank you, Mayor, through you, and thank you for the questions. In response to the first question around the attendance at the community conversation, I guess it's difficult for me to answer as to why people chose to attend or not to attend. What I will say, I guess, is that it's not uncommon for our community conversations to have attendance of that number, of that nature, and the numbers of our attendance at our community conversations do fluctuate. So it depends on subject, depends on time of the year, time of the day, etc. So it does fluctuate. I think it's important to point out too that through this Future of Local Government process that the community consultation, the consultation elements of that project were primarily conducted by the board that is running this process. So that the board, I guess, were in charge of ensuring community opportunities to participate in the process, and they've done that in a number of ways and through surveys and so forth. And there's an opportunity for the community to participate in hearings that are upcoming in August. So there is an opportunity for people to do that. The council obviously chose to do this in addition to the board's work in that regard to try and gain some further information. But certainly council has, and it is publicly available, the information received from the consultation processes that have been undertaken by the board and through the Local Government Association. In relation to why the notice board was removed from the park next to the post office, I'm not specifically sure, to be honest, but I'm happy to take that on notice and find out some further details and provide that information back to you. And in relation to the digital board talked about by council in the year 21-22, I guess council has had a number of discussions through budgetary processes around digital notice boards. We've explored and the councils have been provided with information, for and against those digital notice boards. At this point in time, there hasn't been a desire to proceed with those, but I guess at any given time that can be revisited. But at this point in time, council has, I guess, made the call, not to proceed with those. It's not on the drawing board at the moment, but as I said, can be brought back to table for consideration into the future if there's a desire to do so.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr Hutchison, if you would come forward, you have a public statement to make on the Future of Local Government Review submission, and you have 3 questions.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and councillors and staff. My first question is in relation to question 19 in tonight's questions taken on notice, officer's response to my question. That statement says, Council has no workplace cultural issues or concerns. In recent months, the Director of Organisational Performance has left, and I've noticed that the Director of Community Engagement has been absent from multiple meetings. Council anecdotally also advertises positions quite frequently. My question to councillors is this, and I'm directing it to each councillor to provide an individual response. Are you certain with evidence that there are no workplace cultural issues or concerns? Do you want me to keep going with my questions, or?
Yes, Mr Hutchison, if you could give us question 2, please.
Thank you. My question is for councillors that were not councillors in 2013 and 2014. So for councillors Roberts, Johnston, Councillor Raw, Councillor Courtney and Councillor Hyland, have you been provided with past reports into this council's workplace culture to ensure that you are completely informed when comparing past performance to contemporary council performance? And my third question. Were the Waratah community and residents consulted when you drafted your submission for the Future of Local Government Review Board submission process? That's a question for you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchison. I will respond to your questions before you go on with your statement. Your first question, the answer is yes, and the response will be from the Chair only. For your second question, it is not relevant to the governance role of this council. And the third question, I shall ask the General Manager to respond.
Through you, Mayor, specifically in relation to Waratah, no, there have not been any, specific sessions held in Waratah. The Waratah residents were, provided with the same opportunity to participate in the board's consultation process as the remaining residents across the municipality, but there haven't been any specific sessions in Waratah, to answer your question directly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You now have a statement, Mr. Hutchison.
Yes.
Thank you.
I guess it's disappointing that I ask questions of councillors and they are effectively gagged by you, Mayor, so that's my first. I guess I'll email those questions to councillors to respond as they choose. I guess if I was a councillor, I'd be pretty disappointed if a member of the public asked a question and the councillor was refused a right of response. So I guess that's my feedback for you, Mayor. In relation to tonight's report, 9.1, Future of Local Government Review submission, and the attached appendix. I don't have the appendix with me, but I'll just refer to page 21 and page 22 and page 23. So in the summary, it says council has stated the submission recognises that scenario 3 presented for the Western catchment is a likely long-term option, and notes scenario 2 has a much easier and smoother pathway forward. And that's the essence of the feedback. And I must admit, most of the submission was actually well written and well considered, and it's illuminating to know that councillors and staff are considering this very seriously. What I am concerned about is, the prompting and proposal of scenario 2, and I'll just go through it just for the benefit of people that might be listening and also for Waratah. So scenario 2 is the one that this council is promoting, which establishes 3 council areas within the Western catchment. A, the existing West Coast LGA extending north to incorporate Waratah and Savage River. B, Circular Head and Waratah Wynyard minus Waratah and Savage River. And C, King Island existing LGA. So scenario 3 is an area that consolidates all of those councils, and scenario 1 consolidates existing Waratah Wynyard boundaries, Circular Head and King Island, but leaves the West Coast isolated. So I guess my concern is that if Waratah hasn't had a specific consultation, and it was Waratah in the last round of amalgamations that felt really ripped off by having to join and be amalgamated with a bigger council, and that's in the past. But if Waratah again is going to be excluded from council's consultation process, I'll withdraw that. Not intentionally included. I feel like Waratah has been sort of pushed to the side again. This council in its submission emphasised the need to maintain Somerset within a future redistribution of boundaries, and based on to make it financially sustainable, but we don't see that same level of consideration given to Waratah. Is that perhaps because Waratah is not doesn't provide the level of rate revenue that Somerset does? So are we ditching Waratah because they're not providing the level of revenue that Somerset is perceived to provide? And I wonder if the Burnie City Council, who has been pushing for amalgamation with Waratah Wynyard for quite some time, if they make the same argument of, I guess, adjusting Waratah Wynyard's boundary to include Somerset into Burnie, then even if there is no forced amalgamations, each different council is going to put forward their case. So I'm just concerned primarily that this council hasn't, before the submission is put forward, hasn't considered Waratah, and I know it's probably too late to adjust the submission tonight. I acknowledge that, but I guess with a little bit of hindsight, a bit more active consultation with the community as to what does the community actually want. There was a meeting held by Planning Matters Alliance Tasmania, and 2 councillors attended that, but 6 councillors from here did not attend that, and that was a regional meeting, and that had quite a number of people at that meeting. So for this council to state you don't know why only 8 people came to the meeting that you held, maybe it's because it wasn't widely well advertised. Maybe you're missing the mark in terms of community engagement, and maybe that's because the Director of Community Engagement is missing in action. So I guess I'll leave it at that, but I just wanted to just highlight that even though the government has committed to no forced amalgamation, that doesn't mean there won't be any boundary adjustments. And if Waratah Wynyard puts a submission forward that excludes Waratah, how are they going to feel? And I'd just like to close by acknowledging our visitors tonight from the departments, and especially Dylan Hesp, who's a comedian and filmmaker. I'd just like to thank you for coming, and if you've got any interest in doing some comedy based on the Waratah Wynyard Council, hit me up, because I've got plenty of material for you to work with. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mr. Hutchison, and thank you for your opinions. We'll now move on to the Planning Authority items. Item 6, there are no planning items on this agenda tonight. Item 7, matters raised by councillors. Councillor Courtney, her question was around the point of order, and a response has been provided. 7.2, we have not received any questions in writing from councillors. Councillors' questions without notice. Are there any questions this evening without notice from the councillors, please? Councillor Bramage.
Thank you. I think we talked about this briefly last Monday night regarding the lighting at the Bowls Club. Ken Newington is spot on. Went to a function round there on Saturday week ago for the Lions changeover dinner, and the further you walk down Saunders Street, the darker it gets. I think there was 3 councillors there, and we all acknowledged the same thing, so I would suggest that our staff are onto that. I guess the other concerning thing is the lighting on the poles. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Hyland, we was told that Aurora, or whoever they call themselves that fixes the lighting, was 3 months waiting list to fix the light. And I find that pretty staggering. There's a 3 months waiting list. So
Do you have a question, Councillor Bramage, around all of this?
Is there some way we can find out from Aurora whether that is right or wrong?
Mr Summers, would you like to respond, please?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, we can certainly reach out to see whether that's the case or not. For Councillor Bramich's benefit, we did have a capital works job in the past financial year where we were quoted a 38-week lead time for moving a light and pole.
Thank you, Mr Summers. Are there any further questions without notice from the councillors, please?
Yep.
Councillor Highland.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just in regard to the roadworks, the section just west of Wynyard where the church is in the gully, they appear to have removed all their machinery and probably a month ago or 6 weeks ago, and there's just nothing happening. Is there any issues out there, or just weather? Is a weather issue?
Mr Summers.
Yep, through you, Mayor. Yeah, DSG did communicate that they were leaving that site during the wetter months, given they couldn't achieve much. So that was a planned action by DSG, we understand. And I forget the date they stated they'd return, but I think it was September, but I'll take that on notice. So.
Thank you. Another question, Councillor Highland?
Yeah, in regard to the roadworks again, and if you go out to where Gates's Road, you will recall, Mr Engineer, I did forward a photograph of a pothole, huge pothole, that developed in the road probably 2 weeks after it had been opened. That hole now has doubled in size again, and there appears to be a major issue with that section of road, so I'm just wondering whether they get paid to come back and fix it or whether it's under warranty.
Thank you again, Mr Summers.
Yeah, thanks through you, Mayor. We raised it initially and we'll raise it again. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Look, just following up on what Ms Robinson spoke about, is there any chance that we could perhaps do some form of consultation with the public around a community notice board, physical, in person, and perhaps a suitable location for one? It is actually something, it's not just Ms Robertson that talks about it. I get asked about that a lot.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Mr GM, would you please respond?
Through me, yes, in relation to notice boards, digital information sharing, there has been some papers, as I alluded to earlier in the meeting, put forward for councillors to deliberate in previous budget discussions. Your point is well made that those papers may not have been viewed by the newer councillors, such as yourself, so we can bring some of that information back for that purpose, or at least share that information with you all.
Thank you, Mr GM. Are there any further questions from the floor? Councillor Highland, you've got your light on. Did you, Councillor Bramich, were you wanting to ask another question?
Yeah, I know, it seems like we're going on and on about it, but it's a piece of footpath up near the West End. Is there any information when that can be fixed? Because it is dragging on far too long.
Mr Summers.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, I'd completely agree with the frustration. We've, in the last 2 weeks, seen the primary contractors head person meeting with the subcontractors who have got the job to do, but we're yet to see action. So I think I'd given an answer a month ago. We were expecting it to have been completed 3 weeks prior than that, and here we are still. So.
Thanks, Mr Summers.
Just following on from Councillor Bramich, I just want to...
You're going to ask a question, are you,
I
Councillor Roberts?
I am indeed. Just following on from Councillor Bramich, I just want to say, while this has been quite public about this lip of this footpath, we've had overwhelmingly tremendous positive feedback about the IGA car park. And one of the things in that is the disability parking at the side of the IGA. Give it to people and they will like, I suppose, with that thing. And I've actually been asked about the potential for more disability parking in town, and I know it's difficult, especially with the rate we're expanding, but is there any way we could bring that back to the table at workshop? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Mr GM.
Through you, Mayor, my response is probably not dissimilar to what my previous reply, Councillor Roberts, that it is a matter that Council has considered. I know that this Council does provide the standard or the required number of spaces within the CBD of Wynyard in terms of disability parking. But again, it's always discretionary as to what you provide in that regard or not, and perhaps we need to find that information and bring that back for the information of our councillors again.
Thank you, Mr. GM. If there are no further questions, we shall move on to notices of motion. Councillor Roberts, you have a notice of motion, and that motion is that Council review its current policies and guidelines relating to providing financial support to residents representing Tasmania and Australia at national and international events. So you wish to move this particular motion? So
I do.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder for that motion, please?
I'll second that.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Roberts, would you please open the debate or discussion?
Oh, I absolutely would love to do that, Mayor, so thank you very much. This was prompted by Ms Stephanie Crawford of Somerset, who has made the state 8-ball team and was seeking some kind of assistance or support from us, and in line with our current policy, that isn't possible. So while this is not for any one individual, this is for all of the people in our community that have achieved a state representation in their chosen field, that we may as a council be able to support them and help them on their way. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers against the motion? Councillor Hyland?
Yeah, at this stage, I'm not interested in supporting it, but I will be interested in other councillors' views. This policy was only just reviewed 12 months ago, and it's not due till 2026. I'm just wondering whether we're just putting the cart before the horse. We haven't really been through a process where we can actually find out whether it warrants a change as yet. We haven't got a case to go. We've had one inquiry in regard to a state, a person that's going to represent the state across on the mainland. So, and I think, to the best of my knowledge, it's a number of years since we've had an inquiry. And the reason we went to a national only, it's around the time of the futsal craze, and we were just inundated with requests because we had the state policy, and it would have cost us a small fortune. And so that was the reason we did that, and we've always advocated that there's other opportunities in the municipality. There's service clubs, there's quite a few options that they can do to raise money, and yeah, failing that, but I'd like to see a little bit more debate around this and have at least a case to actually bring that policy back to the table. Otherwise, we just tend to willy-nilly bring them back as we sort of hit along a problem. We've successfully done this so far. So I'll just be interested in other councillors' views.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Are there any speakers for the motion? Any further speakers against? Councillor Johnson?
I'm on. I was just thinking that I think we really need a workshop about this, and as Kevin said, Councillor Hyland said, yeah, if we can get everyone's view on that and just to see where everyone's at. So it really needs a good thrash out. Obviously there's fors and against, and yeah, just to see what we can do, if we can bring it back to a workshop and see where it is.
Thank you. Mr. GM.
Through you, Mayor, I think it's just important to clarify the wording of the motion. That the motion as it reads calls for a review of the policies and guidelines. So that's not committing to a change, it's calling for a review. So that review would result in the information that both Councillor Hyland and Councillor Johnson are seeking. And so there is an opportunity following that review for for further discussion to support or otherwise. So I think what both Councillor Johnson and Highland are seeking in terms of further information is proposed as part of the motion before. I thought it was important to clarify that.
Yep, thank you, Mr GM. Councillor Bramich, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, look, I'm more than happy to have a review into it and see where we go from there.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Roberts,
I
you
just
wish
want
to...
Yeah, I do. I just want to point out that we produce some of the best athletes in this state, pound for pound.
Just a moment, Councillor Roberts. You can't speak to the motion, but you can close it off. Is that what you're doing now? Okay, thank you.
Look, I just, again, in closing, our region literally produces, pound for pound, some of the best athletes in this state. And, you know, as a council, it is important that we support our juniors and we support our locals to reach the furthest fields in their vocation. And I am 100% behind trying to support, to bring this back to the table, to actually support the community in achieving their dreams. So I'm 100% behind it.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Reports of officers and committees. The Future of Local Government Review submission. There is a recommendation before you, councillors, that council endorse and approve its submission to the Future of Local Government Review. Could I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Roberts, could I have a seconder, please?
Yeah,
Councillor Highland. Councillor Roberts, would you like to speak to this motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to actually give credit to the submission that has been put back to the review panel, the board, and also that I want to reference the PMAT meeting with the community that myself and Councillor Courtney attended and Councillor Bramich made apologies for. That we as a community and also as members of the council are very passionate about the future and the security of our region, including Waratah. There has been many comments from us about the perhaps process that we've been under during this period, and the margins for the timelines are so thin it has almost made it incredibly difficult to actually get to all the places that we as a council would like to be. And with the news last week from the state government, I'm hoping that it'll give us a bit more time to reach out to all the appropriate stakeholders. As a staff, as a region, as a community and as a council, as tough as this has been with local government review, there's also been a great spirit of people coming together and really recognising the role that council and the community and the members of our communities play. So I want to actually, as Mr Hutchison stated, the submission that our General Manager has made is beyond exceptional. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Are there any speakers against this motion? Speakers for? Councillor Highland.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, just got a couple of things. Our council has been very consistent throughout this whole process, that it seeks recommendations from the reform process that result in positive outcomes for the Waratah Wynyard community, including ensuring that service levels are maintained, local representation is maintained, and the financial status of the community is strengthened. I did just take a couple of 3 or 4 paragraphs out of the submission that we did put in, and I think they're very pertinent points and which need to be sort of put out there on a regular basis in the next 4 or 5 weeks because we certainly give the whole process a going over, and some additional comments were put forward are very important. One paragraph on waiting. The Waratah Wynyard Council is a strongly performing council against all metrics. It is financially sustainable and is delivering with record levels of capital expenditure. It has a mature and robust decision-making process. It is our council's belief that this background needs to be considered by decision makers. More weight should be given to the position of better performing councils and proven sound decision makers, rather than those that have a less than satisfactory practices in this regard. Now, in the additional comments, Council notes with interest the comments of the Premier on Sunday the 16th of July regarding the fact that this review process will not result in any forced amalgamations. The Board's report is conclusive that change must occur in the sector. The sector will not reform itself, so it appears what is best for the industry will be lost and opportunities for improvement wasted. In structural reform does not eventuate as a result of government-led change. The government must incentivise the process for those councils willing to be forward-thinking and proactive. Funding should be provided to support councils seriously progressing the next stage of discussions, including covering the costs of any community engagement and voting processes, and to assist in the initial operational impacts of changes. Council also strongly encourages the government to establish a process where non-compliance is dealt with effectively, urgently and strongly. Councils that continue to produce underlying deficit budgets, that fail to comply with legislation and fail to deliver on promised services must be held to account. Evidence would suggest that full compliance and sustainability is not possible with the existing number of councils. Furthermore, the Tasmanian Audit Office must take a much more proactive role in closely scrutinising long-term financial plans and strategic asset management plans to test the veracity. Whilst there is no data to suggest that any of the scenarios or options presented will address the issues being faced by councils in this region today, recruitment and retention, reduction in elected member interest, contractor and builder availability and declining population. Progression needs to be made in other aspects to aid a better industry. Unfortunately, politics will cloud decisions made on logic and fact.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this motion or against? Thank you, Councillor Bramage.
Yeah, I'm going to speak for the motion, for sure. Irrespective of what happens, I think the process that the state government or the board has got to have a lot of community meetings to get the feel from the public. As a council, we've got to get our share of the fuel tax as well. We get a bit, but that has not been renewed since maybe 2002. Stand corrected on that. I think we're missing out a lot there. Councils need money for health and well-being as well. I think the government's got to come to the party on that. And I just can't believe what some councils are getting away with and some are not. We're required to have audit panel meetings. That's compulsory, I understand. But some councils don't have them. So come on, state government. Start and get some things right. It's just not about shifted councils around here and there, but get the facts right to start with, the little things. But I'm quite happy with the submission we've put in. We've spent a bit of time on it. It's just a shame the community didn't come along to our meetings more. I just don't know how you get them along there. But I do encourage us, whatever happens, the state government to have more meetings and get everyone on a level playing field. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bramage. Are there any further comments? I'm actually going to make a comment this time. Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Before you close it off, there was a lot of work undertaken by this council. All councillors were involved. It was a huge amount of work to work through. My only comment is, or observation is, that local government reform is essential for our survival, but the process that we have gone through is rather like moving the deck chairs around the Titanic. It is unfair to say that moving a boundary will result in a better council. I ask the question of councillors and anyone else who's watching or listening, will this local government reform process bring about local government that's fit for the future? I think there is a lot more work that needs to be done, and just moving boundaries may not achieve what the state government is wishing. So, Councillor Roberts, you wish to close?
I just want to say very well, incredibly spoken, Mayor Dunham. I would hope that members of our public that have witnessed this tonight understand that we as members of the community, and not just as councillors but as proud members of this community, are very proud of our community and the members in it. And it's great to see such a uniform approach from management and councillors alike to this. And, you know, whilst not criticising state, I would just like to ask them that maybe we just get given the relevant time to actually communicate fairly with the constituents in our region. And there's been a lot of pressure on us about what is exactly going on, and to be honest, at times we don't even know ourselves. So communications are very important in this, and we have done the best that we can, and I just hope that the community understands that we take this very seriously as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. As there have been no speakers against the motion, I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. 9.2, Sand Sculpture Family Day event. There is a recommendation, 2 parts to that recommendation. Could I have a mover for that particular motion? Councillor Highland.
happy to move that.
Could I have a seconder, please?
Second that.
Councillor Bramich. Councillor Highland, did you wish to speak to it?
Just shortly, a motion that was put up by Councillor Raw, and it's pretty self-explanatory there. If we seek some expressions of interest from the community to run the event, or otherwise we'll include it as part of the Spring Loaded program. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Highland. Are there any further speakers to this motion? Councillor Bramich.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just well done, Councillor Raw. You know, all these new things have got to help our community. So, well done.
Thank you for that. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, once again, congratulations, Councillor Raw. Perfect opportunity for a community, e.g. surf club, volunteers, fire brigades, anyone to get hold of this, and a perfect opportunity to fundraiser as well.
Thank you. If there are no further speakers to the motion, I'll put the motion. There's no one who's spoken against it. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. The Ballast Pit Road speed limit reduction. There is a recommendation there, 2 parts to that recommendation. Could I have a mover for that motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Highland.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Highland, do you wish to speak to this motion?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just briefly, obviously we've been given the approval, and the fact they've got 2 speed limits on a couple of kilometres, but anyway, that's what we've got, and we need to run with it. That's all.
Thank you, Councillor Highland. Any further speakers to this motion? Councillor Roberts.
Thanks, Mayor Dunham. Again, this one can be a little bit contentious. We will probably get asked exactly why there are 2 different speed limits, and I just want people to know that our council, especially Councillor Bramich, who deserves great credit, has pushed very hard to provide some form of logic to this situation, but unfortunately the Transport Commissioner has given us his verdict and our hands are tied. So our apologies to anyone that does have any issues to that.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Bramich.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'll support the motion. I guess the only concern I have, we've got 2 speed, as has been said before, we've got 2 speed limits on 2 kilometre length of road, but that's the way they want it, so we've got to go with it.
Thank you, Councillor Bramage. If there are no further speakers to this motion, no one has spoken against the motion. I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. The Wynyard Sports Precinct, Austin Street closure. There is a recommendation before you, councillors. Two parts to that recommendation. Could I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Roberts, could I have a seconder?
Second.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Roberts, do you wish to open the discussion?
I do indeed. I have actually had residents of Austin Street asking me about this, and last night I was able to tell them that the agenda was online on the council website and that they could access it and the public attachments, and I actually sat and read a bit of this with a resident of Austin Street last night. And so for members of the public, Traffic and Civil Services has done an amazing roughly 150-page report on Austin Street, Jenner Street, Gibbon Street, the site traffic off the roundabouts, etc. Now, it might not be the most exciting stuff on earth, but if anyone is really interested in seeing what's going on with the sports precinct, what the deal is with the traffic, what the ideas are around that little sports precinct, I would highly recommend going and reading that report, and I'd also recommend checking this agenda and looking at the findings in there. So thank you. It's excellent work, Council.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Are there any further speakers to this motion? Councillor Hyland.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, well, we're actually seeking some more input in regard to the proposed closure, if you like, or not. But it does really centre around public safety right throughout the precinct. We're trying to bring some sports together, 4 or 5 different sports, connect the main footy oval with the high school, and really brings a real feel for the general public. They can move freely from area to area without having that through traffic. And I don't, from my personal view, I wouldn't see a real issue with redirecting that main traffic down Saunders Street. In regard to the primary school, there is a couple of options. You can come down Hale Street as well, round that way. And I think it all just points to a real good safety aspect for the whole sporting precinct, and they can really, and we can use a lot more of that area in regard to car parks and other facilities. So, yeah, that's the view.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Are there any further speakers, please? Councillor Bramage.
Yeah, I'm going to support the motion. I guess it's probably no shock to a lot of people. It's been flagged for the last 10 years or more that possibly will close off one day. It's not, so, you know, like it's probably no shock to anybody, but I think with all the information we've got and some input from the public now, we should have it in a nutshell, I reckon.
Thank you, Councillor Bramage. Any further speakers? Councillor Johnson, thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to congratulate this report. It's one of the most detailed reports I've seen in traffic assessment on that, and just reading a little clip from Tas Police Wynyard, what they've said in the report, and it is highly unlikely that surprises for the road users when changes happen in the first 6 months. That it takes about 6 months for people to get their head around things, but as I say, they've given it the go-ahead and highly recommend it anyway. So, thank you, the Wynyard Sport Presidents, for the job they've done. Excellent.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Roberts, if you would like to conclude this discussion.
I just want to point out that the first concept of the sports precinct to now has probably been about 40 years. So we're right at the pointy end of actually getting these things done, and the council before me has done an absolutely tremendous job with this. And now we're really looking at the logistics and the infrastructure around how we are going to support this sports precinct. And safety measures, as Councillor Bramage has alluded to, and again, as Mayor Dunningham stated, that this will continue, and Councillor Hyland said as well, this will continue to be consulted with and about, and again, I just cannot, we want to hear the feedback of the members of our community, and we cannot recommend enough that you go and read this report and have a look at this agenda, and please by all means contact us at council and let us know what you reckon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. There have been no speakers against the motion, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. 9.5, the Quarterly Information Report, Community and Engagement. There is a recommendation before you, councillors, to note the Quarterly Information Report for the Community Engagement Department as of the 20th of June 2023. Could I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Roberts, could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hyland. Councillor Roberts, do you have any comments you wish to make about this report?
I just want to say, for anyone interested in the operations of council, please read the agenda and you'll find in this report pretty much all the information that you would be seeking. I really appreciate the work that is put into archiving and recording all the details, and I really think it's amazing that this is available to the public in our agenda. And again, I highly recommend anyone from the public go to Waratah Wynyard Council online and actually look in our agendas and minutes and actually read through the material in there, and the answers to many of your questions will probably be in there. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Any further comments from the councillors, please?
Oh, just a couple. The highlights, I suppose, the youth leaders. Just a bit of a snapshot of three of those young ladies there, and a little bit about the up and coming work. They'll obviously be heavily involved in the Tulip Festival, which is good. And heading down to Waratah, just noted that the caravan park income was up 2% compared to the same quarter last year, and with the annual income up to about 67k, and highest on record, and up to 21% on last year. Very good. So we're obviously getting the visitors into Waratah. That's the point, I suppose. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Sounds like we're on a roll. Councillor Bramage.
Just make a comment that I don't know who that bloke is there with a plate of food in front of him. Maybe you can find out the other track there.
Thank you, Councillor Bramage. Any further comments from the floor, please? Okay. No one has spoken against the motion, so I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. 9.6, the implementation of tactile ground surface indicators. I think that this is a recommendation that our member in the gallery will be very happy about. So we have a recommendation there before you, councillors. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Hyland, seconder.
So moved.
Councillor Bramage. Councillor Hyland.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to congratulate Daniel and his crew for a really good report, and I for one would congratulate you and hope that you continue on with the way you're dealing with this particular item. And I think as a council we do a pretty even spread of funds across the whole municipality come budget time, and I think we can't be any fairer than that with how we're dealing it out. So I think they're getting a pretty fair deal in every quarter.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Are there any further speakers to this motion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. 9.7, the audit panel minutes of meeting held on the 27th of June. There is a recommendation there that the council note the unconfirmed minutes, note the annual report and adopt the revised Waratah Wynyard Audit Panel Charter, and approve the reappointment of Lisa Dixon as an independent member of the Shared Audit Panel for a period of 3 years from the 3rd of August 2023 to the 3rd of August 2026. Could I have a mover of this motion, please?
So moved.
Councillor Roberts, could I have a seconder, please?
Second.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Roberts, do you wish to make any comments about this particular motion?
I just want to go back to what Councillor Bramage said before, that, you know, we as a council do follow all the proper protocol in terms of the money, and Councillor Leanne Raw represents us or oversees it for us, and Lisa Dixon does an amazing job, so it's great news that she's back on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Councillor Bramage.
Just got a question, Mayor. Any of us councillors can sit in on it, can't we?
Yes, Mr. GM, would you respond? Oh, well, Mr. Smith, Manager of Financial Services.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes. I believe councillors review periodically their membership on different committees, but effectively council is able to appoint any councillors to that committee, but it would need to do so at a time when it was reviewing its membership across all its committees.
But even if we're not on the committee, we can still sit in, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. You can sit in as an observer to that meeting and attend, yes.
Yes, I can say that as an observer, the audit panel are so thorough, absolutely thorough in everything that they look at. And I have noted at the last couple of panel meetings, there is very little criticism of the way that this council has been undertaking its business. So we should congratulate our financial services, in particular Mr. Smith, who's now keeping a very wide eye on everything that's going on in our council. So I think that we do adhere to the criteria set down by the state government. Yes.
Mayor, if you allow me to make a comment, I did sit in on one back in the very early days, and listen, I would encourage any councillor that's got a spare couple of hours to come and sit in on one. Very interesting.
Thank you, Councillor Bramage. No one has spoken against the motion. Aye, carried unanimously. 9.8, nomination of Municipal Emergency Management Coordinator and Deputy. There is a recommendation there for nominations. One is, well, I'll read it out. The Council nominate to the Minister for Police, Fire and Emergency Management through the SES Director in accordance with Section 23 of the Emergency Management Act 22006. Number 1, Corey Gould, Manager Engineering Services, to be its appointee to the role of Municipal Emergency Management Coordinator, and number 2, Karina DeRider, Work Support Coordinator, to be its appointee to the role of Deputy Municipal Emergency Management Coordinator. Could I have a mover, please?
I'll move them to be nominated.
Thank you, Councillor Bramage. Could I, okay, Councillor Roberts, seconded. Councillor Bramage, do you wish to make any comments?
No, I think they'll be worthy of filling the role. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments? If not, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye, carried. 9.9, Cradle Coast Waste Management Group Annual Plan and Budget. The recommendation is that Council note the Cradle Coast Waste Management Group 2023-24 Annual Plan and Budget. Could I have a mover, please?
So moved.
Councillor Hyland, could I have a seconder, please?
Seconded.
Councillor Roberts. Councillor Hyland, did you wish to make any comments?
Oh, I just picked up a couple of things, or one thing there, that we look like we may have a couple of new members later in 2024. King Island and West Coast Council.
Thank you.
Good job.
Any further comments? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. 9.10, Public Open Space Contribution Policy and Guidelines. The Council adopt the Public Open Space Contribution Policy and associated guidelines with immediate effect. Could I have a mover for that motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Councillor Roberts moved. Councillor Hyland seconded. Are there any comments or questions that anyone wishes to make against this recommendation?
Yeah, just a
Councillor
question. public open space. We used to have that many years ago. Did it just get dropped or lost in the system, or are we renewing it, reactivating it?
Mr. GM.
Through you, Mayor, this is a revision of an existing policy. Yeah, so a policy that has been in place for a number of years, and it is well overdue for review. So its time is up to be reviewed and tidied up, and that's why it's presented in front of you tonight. So,
Councillor Roberts.
I'll just there's absolutely no doubt that we're one of the most livable places on earth, and I just really want to. I hope that this shows the community that we are very much steadfast in our belief that this should be absolutely one of the most livable places to live, and that the land and the people and the recreation and the space all means a lot to us, and it always will do.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Any further comments? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. 9.11, award of contract 798, construction of pontoon bridge and viewing platform at Waratah. We have a recommendation for awarding the contract. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Hyland.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Could I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Councillor Roberts. Councillor Hyland, I reckon you would like to speak to this one.
I certainly would. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, this is a great example of what you can achieve when you work with a community to help them get some great outcomes. The establishment of the Waratah Community Board has certainly been a winner here. The construction of the historic rail bridge walkway and the commencement of stage 1 of the Waratah waterfall viewing platform are the two projects in this current tender. Find me pages here. We have received federal funding and state funding, as well as a council contribution. Work is due to commence in October 2023 for completion at the end of March 2024. So we're certainly, everybody in Waratah will really be looking forward to this. I've been lucky to be part of that process for nearly 5-6 years now, and we've finally got a couple of big projects on the board. And with that, I'd like to pass on our thanks to Tracy Bradley, who was the real instigator of the Waratah Community Board. She put hours and hours into that project, and I'm very grateful for her that this has finally showing some really positive outcomes. So certainly support the tender process and look forward to the first shovel.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Any further speakers? Councillor Roberts.
I just actually want to really credit Councillor Kevin Hyland for his work in Waratah. He's done an exceptional job working with the Waratah Community Board. The Waratah Community Board deserve great credit as well as many wonderful people down in Waratah that make that community what it is. I just want to read the recommendation that the tendered sum of $722,690 excluding GST is it's not a small number, and I hope it shows citizens of Waratah that we are absolutely committed to that region, and we've definitely not intended to spend this much money, only to lose them in the review. So I just hope that would assure some people, and long may the good work continue.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. And I do take your point. Waratah is not forgotten. Councillor Bramage.
Yeah, I just got a very small comment. I guess Councillor Hyland's happy, I'm happy.
Thank you for that, Councillor Bramage. If there are no further comments, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. 9.12, the financial report for the period ended 30th of June, and the recommendation is that Council note the financial report for this period. Could I have a mover of that particular motion, please?
So moved.
Councillor Roberts, could I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Roberts, do you wish to make any comments?
I'll just make pretty much the same comment I made during the quarterly information report, and also about the audit. The amount of detail and data that is recorded and placed into these agendas and the public attachments, I would highly recommend everyone go and have a look at them, and you'll find a lot of data and statistics and information down to how much the childcare centres are used, how many visitors we have, how much money we are raising, how much money we have. If anyone is interested, by all means, please go and find that information. It is publicly available.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Any further comments from the floor, please? If not, I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. Moving on to the Senior Management Report, the recommendation is for the Council to note this report. Could I have a mover, please, of this motion?
Oh, so moved.
Councillor Hyland, could I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Councillor Roberts. Councillor Hyland, do you wish to make any comments?
Very happy with the report, as usual.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. I will make one comment on the Regional Tourism Forum, and it does note there that the speakers included Jamie Dury, who did state that Waratah Wynyard Council was the easiest council to work with in Australia. So we have a lot to be proud of for listening and working with those developers that come our way. If there are no further speakers, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. 9.14 is minutes of other bodies, and 9.14 notes of Waratah Community Board meeting. Could I have a mover, Councillor Hyland?
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Are there any comments or speakers to this recommendation, please?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a couple of comments. The last meeting was probably, out of all our meetings, was probably one of the most positive meetings that I've sat in at Waratah for a long time. And the big plus that we had Jenny Archer give us a bit of a rundown on the town signage, which I sort of wasn't expecting, but it landed and it was just out of this world. It just covered off on everything. They just sat there with their mouths open. She'd covered the lot. It was tremendous. The designs, everything sort of, I think we've had one email with one addition if we can fit it in the budget. I think that was the query, and it was the old faithful the caravan park sign. They can't find the caravan park, but that's been going for 30 years. But anyway, no, very positive, and with our two big projects on the road now, we can only look forward to bigger and better things for Waratah.
Thank you, and again, it is terrific to hear such positive comments about Waratah. Any further comments, please? Councillor Roberts.
Again, just for anyone that has any doubt at all, our mood and our attitude towards Waratah is very, very positive, and we're definitely looking to get this work done down there, and the Community Board and Councillor Hyland, and also, as you mentioned before, it's everybody. Everybody's involved, and they're all positive about Waratah, so long may it continue.
Thank you, Councillor Roberts. Just one point that I wanted to make. Under the details, the Councillor Hyland's name was misspelled. He's from the Highlands, so we'll change that to Hyland. Thank you. If there are no further speakers to the motion, I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously. We now move on to matters proposed for consideration in the closed meeting. Could I have a mover of this motion?
So move, Mayor.
Councillor Bramich. Could I have a seconder, please?
Seconded.
Councillor Roberts. So we need to resolve by an absolute majority that matters listed below be considered in the closed meeting. Thank you, Councillor Hyland. I put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried unanimously.